Hi and welcome to the fourth part of the pyramid story. My son Adam is still behind the camera on this rainy Sunday. And the last sentence was, "In the turbulent space around me it storms and whistles, but where I stand all is quiet, as long as I do not move as much as an eyebrow." Slowly the hallucination disappears. The storm subsides and dissolves. The little rock on which I stand becomes the broad stone at the end of the great hall, and the subtle light behind the statues is no longer there. Again, total darkness reigns. I feel an inner certainty that I have now accomplished what I had to do in this room. I stoop and feel my way into the opening of the level corridor. I've been here before, so I crawl cautiously in order to avoid banging my head against the ceiling or against low-hanging stone structures. A few yards inside the corridor I encounter the block I smashed up against earlier at some moment in time. Was it yesterday, or is it something I remember from another era? The tender bump over my left eye tells me that it cannot have been that long ago, and I put a cool hand protectively over the swelling. In some strange way, I feel I have stepped outside of time. Time, of course, still moves forward, but I do not in any way experience it as something separate from me, from my thoughts and movements. I have become one with time, and that is why it appears to be standing still. I am in step with time's progression. We walk together. Behind the low-hanging rock obstruction, the passageway is still blocked off. All the same, I know that the way ahead is through here. Twice before, when such obstacles blocked my way forward, I have observed that doors opened in a manner corresponding to my leaps in understanding, so I surmise that there must be something I have not yet discovered or understood, since the way is barred. So I pause here and settle into my usual meditation position against the wall and empty my mind of thoughts. In this ready, open space inside my mind, images appear, tableaus or visions that, like colorful episodes, unfold on a theatrical stage. I see myself lying mentally exhausted and spiritually vanquished in the chamber deep under the pyramid, and then I see myself running full speed down the ramp in the great hall and crushing myself against the end wall. My consciousness is entirely divorced from these images. They no longer arouse fear or any other feeling in me. The unfolding events seem to befall someone else, whom I sit here and watch. I no longer feel the attracting force of death, and I have no fear of ceasing to exist. If this pyramid were to become my tomb, I would still feel that my life has had a meaning. I have lived to the fullest extent of my mind, at least for a few moments, down in the heart chamber. There I breathed the essence of life in sufficient measure to last me a lifetime. Once again, a warm and intense energy rises within me, causing me to feel courageous and strong, yet at the same instant, calm and completely relaxed. No tension or muscle display, just an intense feeling of being unfazed by the threat of death. A quiet grinding noise of stone against stone causes me to believe that I will now find the stone obstruction removed. It has been raised, but when I crawl in a little further, I find another blockage. The way is still barred. Apparently there are more doors. I will make a short introduction and say that we have an audience here. Perhaps you can sometimes hear my dog Albert. He's breathing heavily because he has played a lot, so don't let that bother you. I sit close to the new barrier so as not to miss the moment when it is raised, and again I empty my mind of images. In my thoughts, I am suddenly back out in the sunlight and it hurts my eyes. I stand on the wooden scaffold set against the entrance and look out across the sand straight towards the blinding orb in the sky. I'm slightly dazed by the sudden change from darkness to light, and I at once raise a shielding hand to my eyes. What will happen when I emerge from this pyramid? Something will have changed as a result of this ascent. I have learned something profound about myself and the workings of my psyche that words cannot adequately describe. My experience of the secret of the pyramid is deep and inexpressible. In future, this knowledge will distinguish me from fellow humans. It is probable that I will be asked to refrain from sharing with others what I have experienced here. The great hall of the judges, my brush with death in the deepest chamber, the loneliness in the grotto, and the return to life in the horizontal corridor. How will I bear this knowledge? Will I be able to keep it to myself when I mingle with others? Will I be able to resist the urge to share my experience with them? The potential disappointment of seeing a conversation reach such an impasse will help me to bear my loneliness. The loneliness derived from knowing something you know could help others if only you could share what you know with them. Nevertheless, I'll have to let my words spring from my intuitions about the processes of life. Am I afraid of living? Am I afraid of being different from others? Will I be able to face a life without real fellowship because there will be a few will be able to understand my ways of thought? A long and tedious life, perhaps? No. Knowledge about life cannot keep me from partaking of it. And I know I'm not alone. All human beings possess deep within themselves a knowledge of what it's all about, and it is towards this very center that I will direct my search in my contact with other people. No human being is ever truly alone. We are all one family. All are my brothers and sisters, my father and my mother, my sons and my daughters. I'm not afraid of life, and I'm not afraid of death. The second barrier lifts. I can feel the rock brushing along my left arm. This fills me with an even greater calm and composure. Now it really feels as if I'm communicating with the pyramid. All my earlier misgivings about the priests and this pyramid project have evaporated. Here only absolute mutual agreement reigns. A sensation that I move around within my own mind. A sensation of extremely precise justice. Whatever bars my way is caused by my own thoughts. And when something is opened, it is because doors open inside of me. This justice, it impresses me. That is why I'm neither disappointed nor alarmed when I encounter yet another barrier further inside the corridor. I wonder how many there are. A slight uneasiness blows like a soft gust of wind over my thoughts all the same. What is now required for this door to open? Before, I was evidently lucky that my thoughts headed in such a direction that the rock was raised. But can I do it yet another time? My uneasiness does not last for long. The feeling of being allowed to be who I am, with all my flaws and shortcomings, which first came to me in the horizontal corridor and has since been manifold strengthened as I have advanced, imperceptibly but efficiently cancels any doubt about my possibilities of succeeding. There is no longer any qualities within myself that I feel can undermine my confidence or lead me onto impracticable paths. I still have flaws and shortcomings, and I am not much more experienced than before I entered this structure. But I feel a certain freedom from the guilt of possessing these shortcomings. I feel the promise of real growth, of a challenging future, promises that compensate for any lack of trust in myself. How wonderful it is to be so ordinary and imperfect. No feeling of initiation or of being a cut above anyone. Or perhaps being initiated is exactly the same thing as coming to see that one is really quite ordinary. I cannot help but smile. I put back my head a little, and a heartfelt chuckle expresses my sense of well-being. I am no longer afraid of myself. Neither am I afraid of life out there. And I do not fear death. The third door slides upwards, and now there are no more barriers. The end of the corridor opens into a large room. Methodically, I make my way through it. I feel my way along the walls and the floor. In the farthest corner, off to the right, a big stone coffin. Close by, leaning against the wall, is a mighty stone slab, heavy enough to require at least 4 men to lift. This object must be the lid of the sarcophagus. In 2 of the walls of this chamber are small holes from which fresh air streams. It's so wonderful to feel welcomed. Apart from the lid and the sarcophagus, this chamber is empty. I sit down in the middle of the floor and ponder where to go from here. My explorations have found no other corridors or openings in the walls, and neither do I feel immediately compelled to crawl back out of here. The presence of the stone sarcophagus clearly invites one to lie down inside it. I will most certainly do that in a while. First, I must be sure that I have not missed anything. I must consider every angle, every detail of this situation. My mind must be altogether free of insecurities and presumptions when I climb into that coffin. Something will happen as I enter it. There can be no doubt about that. A thunderous sound interrupts my thoughts as it booms through the chamber. 3 times in all, I hear the violent crash of stone against stone. The 3 stone barriers of the passageway that brought me here are now being closed down again. Clear enough, now something unusual will happen. I'm not frightened by the sounds. I hardly turn my head. It is as if I've been waiting all along for this to happen. Again, a slight unease bubbles up inside of me. I try to imagine what is expected of me when I lie down within this coffin. Definitely nothing more is to be done. Must I remain completely passive? It is not so very long ago that I lay down inside a coffin with wings on its lid. A coffin appeared at the beginning of the process, and one appears in the end. One led to the pyramids and the dream of flying on the lid to visit my childhood, whereupon I found the courage and strength to stand alone without the symbolic surroundings of parental protection. Freedom and death are cast within the same symbol. Perhaps this coffin will lead to a new kind of freedom, to a new showdown with limiting and confining factors in my existence, a new feeling of independence. I will try. First, I swing in one leg, then the other. I sit down on the bottom of the sarcophagus. In what direction am I supposed to lie down? I try lying with my feet towards the north, toward that end of the coffin closest to the wall. But somehow this feels wrong. I sense that I am more relaxed if my head is turned in the other direction. I note that this sedan of death is a little short. I have to bend my legs slightly. Obviously, one is not supposed to fall asleep. Now I am relatively comfortable. I stir slightly and rub my back against the bottom of the coffin. I'm ready for them to come and carry me back outside, or whatever it is their intent to do. Nothing happens. Well then, I will try to fall asleep after all. They can wake me up if they want something from me. Before I even finish this thought, a scraping sound tells me the lid is being slid onto the coffin. It slides onto the sarcophagus from one side, and although I cannot see it in the dark, I perceive how I am being gradually enclosed, soundlessly and almost imperceptibly. There must be others in the room now, for how else would they manage to put on the lid? I want to shout, "Hi there," or something humorous to match the situation. I stop myself. I have this strange feeling that nobody is out there anyway. Presumably, this is also not an appropriate moment for jokes. I'm a bit nervous, eh? Jokes. A while ago I sat feeling no fear of life, nor of death, nor of myself. What then makes me so nervous? This is simply a stone coffin with its lid on, positioned in a chamber which is closed off by 3 trapdoors inside a pyramid from where there is no escape unless you know those who know how to open it. What is happening inside my head? There is good reason for some apprehension. I'm actually imprisoned, buried alive, with no possibility of escape. That gigantic lid has sealed me in, and even if I could slide it off, I would not be able to pass the stones barring the exit. I have no choice but to calm down and resign myself to this situation. This predicament does not invite anything but surrender. I'm encased in stone with no route of escape. I'm inside something which is inside something which is inside something. And inside of me is I. Enclosures within enclosures, pyramid, chamber, coffin, and then I within me. In my thoughts, my physical body gradually becomes part of the system of boxes within boxes. I am increasingly fascinated by the feeling of a direct connection between my body lying motionless in here and the surrounding shells. I feel like getting up to observe these boxes or shells nested within each other. And this is what I do. I step outside my body and out of the sarcophagus while observing a luminous substance, a cord or a thread leading from myself to my motionless body inside the coffin. Expanding my awareness, I turn my head to gaze around the high-ceilinged room in this totally new way. I'm not alone anymore. Behind me stands my dear old teacher, looking upon me with wise, smiling eyes. I turn to him as he reaches out his hand to me, and together we walk straight through the wall and up a winding staircase which is not hewn out inside the pyramid, but found on this non-physical level on which I move now. My teacher leads the way up the steps, and curious I look about me on all sides, but there are only walls. Then of a sudden we pass into a slightly descending corridor, at the end of which is light, a bright light, and the presence of people, many people. As we approach, the light in the room grows stronger. It is almost blinding, yet not unpleasant. Moving into the bright space, I see the room is laid out in the shape of a cross with equal arms. The arms are only deep recesses in the walls. Yes, the cross shape is still evident. In the center of the room is a huge round table which seems to give out light. It seems solid enough, but I intuitively know that the substance of which it is made does not exist on the physical plane. Only the cross-shaped room exists on the physical plane, and neither are the descending corridor or the staircase real. The priests gathered here, the same ones who attended my entry into the pyramid, must be outside their bodies like me, for this room has no physical entrance. They all bow deeply before me as we step inside the room. 4 of them lead me towards the table in the center of the room. Moments later, I'm sitting in the center of the shining table, the priests standing around me in a circle. For a time, all are silent. Then my teacher says, "My son, you have arrived at the last chamber of the pyramid. Before we reveal to you the secrets of this chamber, you must recount all that you experienced during your ascent through this pyramid. We wish to share in all of your thoughts. You must render your account in such manner that we experience your movements along with you and strive with you up through the corridors. My son, speak loudly and clearly. You have reached the end of your journey. Your trial is over. Let your speech sum up and complete the story of your time within the pyramid." Slowly, I begin my account. I realize the benefits of having carefully reviewed my situation several times during my journey. I perceive these moments as fixed stations along my path upwards through the pyramid. My story flows between them. When I reach the part of my story that describes my urge to slap the thighs of the guards, a low murmur ripples through the chamber. My teacher interrupts me. "We have followed you, you young disciple of the priesthood, and we have rejoiced in the thoughts you have experienced through your quest. Seldom have the messages of the pyramid been reflected so clearly in the experiences of a disciple. However, when you imagine that you would be bound to have your thighs slapped for all eternity for having made the statues of the gods the object of the same flattering touch, we feared that your sanity had after all been damaged by your death experience in the deepest chamber of the pyramid. Therefore, our joy was great when we saw that it was but a temporary deviation from your otherwise steady progress, when you never failed to keep in touch with your position of being human. The thoughts in your mind and the fear you experienced leading up to this moment had all been part of the trials of the pyramid, and your reactions to them were in all ways perfectly natural. But now continue, my friend. Relate your story and tell us why in the end you chose this particular pyramid." I look about, somewhat embarrassed, but meet only kindly eyes and comforting smiles. So I rejoin the story by describing the sensation of being strangled when I stood at the upper end of the great hall, my cry for an answer which was not granted to me in sound, and about what had transpired in the heart chamber, about the connection between the judges and my own judgments of myself, as well as the 3 questions and the 3 blocked doors to the upper chamber. When I finished describing my ascent through the pyramid, I recount the first thoughts that ran through my mind when I stood by the great Sphinx. Then I fall silent as I await the commentary of the priests. But it is long in coming. They are solemn and contemplative, appearing deeply moved by my account. "As I said before, my son, you have passed the trial," my teacher says gravely, emphasizing each word. "Now it is up to us to tell you why the pyramid is organized as it is." And this final part we will postpone until the 5th and last part of this pyramid